Hello and welcome to Intro to ThemDom. My name is Daddy Doyen. I am a pro and lifestyle dominant,
CEO and dominant in charge at the Kinky Cafe LLC.
Let's get into some BDSM basics. BDSM stands for bondage, discipline, dominance, submission, sadism, and masochism.
Traditional FemDom is female or femme-identifying domination. ThemDom is not a new concept. However, it is new verbiage for queer and gender-non-conforming domination.
BDSM protocol is rooted in consent. Always remember your consent phrase. Consent is freely given, reversible, informed, enthusiastic, and specific. Other ways to practice consent in everyday life are before entering someone's personal bubble, before touching someone, and before disclosing something possibly traumatic or alarming to another person.
For example, asking for consent to and the preferred way to refer to someone's genitals. Remember, we are human and humans are liable to make mistakes. We do our best to avoid those mistakes by implementing protocol. However, there is always the chance that either ourselves or others could mess something up. How do you handle when a mistake is made? Understand and learn how to take accountability, and also learn the art of calling people in. How can you avoid those mistakes? We practice protocol.
Practice your use of consent in everyday life, whether you are in or not in a relationship with someone, and whether or not you are queer family. There are a few key concepts in BDSM protocol, the first being SSC. SSC stands for safe, sane, and consensual. Is it safe? Is it sane? Does everyone consent? RAC, or risk-aware consensual kink, is a more specific version of SSC. Are all parties aware of the potential risks involved in the scene? And does everyone consent to it anyway? Prick is an even more specific iteration of BDSM, of these BDSM concepts. Personal responsibility informed consensual kink. What this means is it is the personal responsibility of all involved to set the scene up for success. For example, if you have a seizure disorder, you must disclose that to your play partner just in case. Let them know what it looks like if you do slip into a seizure and what the procedure is if that were to happen. This also applies to mental or emotional conditions such as PTSD and CPTSD. And after this is discussed, does everyone consent to the scene? So what is a kink, what is a fetish, and what is the difference between the two? A kink is defined as an unconventional sexual taste or behavior, although a kink does not have to be directly sexual. A kink becomes a fetish when it must be present for sexual satisfaction. For instance, in the case of a foot fetishist, feet must be present in order for them to complete or to come. In some cases, genital stimulation does not have to come into play at all, as long as there are feet involved. So what is a limit? A limit is something a kinkster is not willing to participate in. There are soft limits and hard limits. A soft limit
is something that you can be convinced of, maybe with an increase of money, a little bit more guidance, or it's a might try on your list. A hard limit is an absolute hard no. A common soft limit of a lot of Black and brown dominance is race play. For instance, a Black dominant may consent to race play if it involves reparations, and a hard no on the slurs. An example of one of my hard limits is scat play. What is a safe word? A word, code, or action meant to signal the need to stop or pause the scene. You and your scene partners may choose a special word as your safe word, maybe a special sentence, or an action if they are nonverbal. An example of a nonverbal safe word would be if your submissive is, for instance, gagged at the time during your scene, and you may not be able to understand them if they were to use their safe word. You can give them a ball or a bandana that they hold on to during the scene, and if they let it go, that is your signal, that is your safe word. A common system used in BDSM is the stoplight system. In the stoplight system, green means go, yellow means slow down or pause, and red means absolute hard stop. Remember that you, as a responsible dominant, can also choose to stop a scene if you believe that it is causing harm or going wrong in some way. There are a few base roles in BDSM. There is the D-type, commonly referred to as Dom, D-O-M, masculine, Dom, D-O-M-M-E, feminine, or the dominatrix, commonly feminine but can be gender neutral. Then there is the S-type or submissive, and there are many types such as brats, pets, littles, there are primal prey, etc. Then there are tops and bottoms. Because the D-type and S-type are different types of power roles in an exchange, a D-type, for instance, can bottom and still be dominant, just as a submissive or an S-type can top and still be submissive. A switch is typically a person who can switch between the dominant and submissive roles, as well as the top and bottom positions. There are many different types of dominance. First, there is the high protocol or traditional dominant, and they would be typically trained in the old guard form of BDSM. There will be a lot of rules, a lot of lifetime contracts. They may have live-in submissives or slaves, and they live the lifestyle 24/7. Then there is the daddy or mommy dom. This is typically a more nurturing type of dominant, or a balance of sadist and nurturing. We typically see this type of dynamic in the DDLG, MDLB, DDLB, or MDLG combination. That stands for Daddy Dom, little girl, Mommy Dom, little boy, etc. Although this type of language is used, it is meant to signify the power dynamic between the two partners. Not to be confused with age playing, which is typically done by ABDLs. ABDL stands for Adult Baby Diaper Lover. These kinksters typically enjoy age regression. They might take on the traits of a toddler or a small child, wear a diaper, and use it accordingly. and they typically require a caretaker and not necessarily a daddy or mommy dom, although they can be both. This role can also sometimes be rooted in a humiliation kink in which the ABDL likes to be shamed for wearing a diaper as an adult. Then there is the role of caretaker. Daddy and mommy doms a lot of times will also be or act as caretakers for littles and ABDLs. However, it is not automatic. It is dependent on the choice of that daddy or mommy dom. A caretaker would be the type of dominant who would care for a little or an ABDL as a parent would, including changing diapers, including going to tea parties and creating things like that, giving them playtime, etc. When creating your persona, there are some things to keep in mind. I cannot stress enough how important it is to be yourself when creating your persona. Your persona is you at the end of the day. And if you're not being you, people will detect it. Play off of your strengths. Maybe you are very masculine looking. Play off of your masculine traits. Maybe you have a sexy, deep voice. Do voice recordings and really emphasize your sexy, raspy voice. Maybe you have a vampire-y thing going on. Create a persona around your vampire self. Never compromise your mental or physical health. Some things just don't work for all of us. Sometimes sugaring isn't going to work for other people who typically can't, fem up enough to go hang out with an old man for a long time. You're not going to be into that. It's going to show and you're going to get yourself into trouble. Don't compromise your morals either. If you can't do full service and you will feel awful about doing full service or feel awful about yourself, please do not compromise that for some more money. Be safe and hide your information as much as possible. There are a few ways to go about this. Use your alias as often as you need to. For instance, if you were setting up an Amazon wish list, use your alias instead of your government name. Facebook is intrusive and typically attracts everyone in your hometown. Change your last name on Facebook. You can only do it a certain amount of times, I believe. And make your Facebook private so that anyone who isn't your friend cannot see what's on your page. When setting up apps such as IG or TikTok, do not let these apps find your contacts. Do not. Consider stopping at your local post office and purchasing a P.O. box. This is a little bit more of an expensive journey, but it is worth it if you have gifts sent to you, and also to use on your Amazon wish list or wish tender. Use your location to your advantage. Sometimes if you post a reel or a TikTok or something like that and you use your location tagging, that can attract clients in your area. Unless you choose to stay online only, in which case the best idea is probably to not tag your location at all. Steps to responsible play. First, always collect government ID. A driver's license is best. I suggest either buying a 2 terabyte or 1 terabyte profile on Dropbox getting a Google Drive with a lot of storage, or purchasing a terabyte drive and creating a folder in which you can keep these IDs collected in maybe a zip folder or something else private. Remember, you want an ID with picture, first, last, and address on it. For booking and vetting, you can start with email. I like to start with an email sent to me to express interest. From there, I send them my booking form or my vetting form. For email, I suggest getting a Proton Mail account. It is encrypted so that you can it's a little bit more safe when it comes to cybersecurity, correspondence back and forth. Gmail is a little bit more intrusive. You can get flagged for things there if you use the wrong language. And it also uploads to the Google Cloud in a lot of ways. You don't really want your information traced. For the vetting form, I suggest you either use jotform.com, where you can create, I think there is a limit on how many free forms you can create, but you really only need the one. Or you can use Google Forms. Again, I would recommend Jotforms before Google Forms. On your vetting form, you're going to want to collect name, first and last, their legal name, what they might want to be called, their pronouns, their location. You can ask them whether they're applying as a single person or as a couple. Always ask their kinks, their limits. Ask about mental health disclosure such as PTSD, CPTSD, or anything that might interfere with safe play. Also remember to ask about physical limits or ailments such as for instance, if someone has had their knees replaced, you don't want them to be kneeling for a long time. If someone has damaged their shoulder in the past, you might not want them to have their arms above their head for too long. That could harm them more, that could get you in trouble, and you don't want that. Email vetting and your vetting form help to eliminate time wasters. Your vetting form should also ask how much this new client might have in their budget for your relationship, whether that's monthly, weekly, or whatever the time period may be for your tribute. And depending on what they respond on your vetting form, for instance, if you say that in your head you won't allow less than $300 per month, then they answer they only have $50 for you per month, you know that you're not going to respond to this vetting form. The vetting form also typically flushes out different red flags, such as lack of limits. If a submissive says that they have no limits, they probably also have no experience, and they will make it unsafe for both of you. Also, other red flags can be constant sexual references, ignoring what your limits are, and bringing up kinks that could cross the line or are illegal, such as blackmail, and things like that. Once you have the information collected for your new client, you can do a background search on them first by just entering their information on Google. That typically brings up their information, where they live, who their family is, if they're listed in a directory somewhere. This also can bring up if they're on a registry somewhere, which is great for background check. With their first and last name, you can also check and find their social media. Another reason that it is good to have your last name changed on Facebook and for your Facebook account to be private. It is usually possible to find a lot of these clients on Facebook where you will see things such as, do they have kids? Do they have people that they worry about? Do they seem like they get along with their community? Is there anything shady or red flaggy about their page? On your vetting form, you can ask for references from your community. This is why it's also a good idea to get out into your local kink community and make friends. Make friends with other DOMs. Make friends with other DOMs that are like you in the queer community, in the queer kink community, in the cutie pot community. You can ask for references from other DOMs that submissives have worked with. And once you get those names, you can simply shoot them an email, use their booking form, or find them on IG, FetLife, or Twitter and send them a quick message. If another DOM can vouch for a client, or better yet, if two DOMs can vouch for a certain client, you know you are most likely in the clear. You can also use paid background searches such as Verify Him. Part of your vetting process can also be meeting in person. I typically like to have the client send me an email. I send them the vetting form. I do the vetting. I get back to them and I schedule a meeting for lunch, dinner, breakfast, whatever, to get to know them for the first time before play. When meeting with a new client or potential submissive, always meet in a public setting. Bring a friend or have a friend on call. Send your location to someone you trust. Carry some sort of weapon that is small enough to carry on your person and will not be taken away. And stay alert and clear-headed. Try not to ingest a lot or any alcohol. Keep your drink covered and keep an eye on your food at all times. Negotiation. Negotiation happens before a scene or active play. It is not typically recommended to have alcohol in your system when you are playing. This is especially important in more risky or high-risk activities such as rope play. Opinions vary on the use of cannabis. For one, it is medically legal in various states. 420 intox fantasies are much less harmful than alcohol intox or other intox fantasies that involve more explicit drugs. It is also much less debilitating for many, not all. During negotiations, always ask about physical restrictions or ailments. If someone has had a knee replacement, you probably don't want them kneeling for long periods of time. If someone has damaged their shoulder at some point in the past, you probably don't want to bind them with their arms above their head. Ask about boundaries physically and mentally. Not everyone is into humiliation. Some people may suffer from PTSD and certain words may trigger them, just as being touched in a certain way or on a certain part of their body may also cause a trigger.
Always establish a safe word. We went over this earlier. If your submissive refuses to use a safe word, they are not safe. Stop it before it even begins. Ask about their mental or emotional state that day. Play can be very, very intense sometimes, and that can cause problems. Confirm your aftercare routine. Your aftercare can be as simple as a bottle of water, a hug, and some people choose to not have aftercare, and that is their prerogative. However, remember that it is your responsibility to ask about the aftercare routine, whether they want it or not. Lastly, you discuss how the scene will be set. You can do things like ask them to remove their clothing before they kneel, ask what is most comfortable for them. Now that you have all of this information, you know how to set the scene best for you and them to have a successful and safe scene. The scene. When it comes to hosting play, you have some options as to your location. If you know of a local dungeon, they usually charge by the hour. You can host in a hotel room. I suggest that you use some sort of tracking on your phone, have a friend wait in the lobby, something like that for your own safety. And also be very discreet. Hosting in hotel rooms is illegal, so you don't want to be caught. Some dominants have their own play space in their home or near their home, or they have a studio that they work with. If it's going to be in your own home, I suggest beef up your security. Make sure that this client is vetted to the umpteenth degree. You don't want randoms coming in and out of your house and for everyone to know your address, especially if this is someone new to you. Another option is maybe you have a friend who owns a studio, maybe a yoga studio or a dance studio, something like that. Maybe they just have a killer workout room in their garage. Maybe they have a she shed or a he shed or something like that. You can always ask a friend to rent the space per hour as well. I don't see any reason that a friend would charge you more than maybe $50 for the hour, or maybe even cheaper than that, depending on what kind of friend. Now let's talk about your play bag. Most importantly, above all else, you need sanitation products. Find yourself a good toy cleaner. There are toy cleaners out there that are organic, natural. Always make sure that you read really well what they are safe and not safe on. If you can afford latex, you'll have a latex cleaner and the products that come with the latex. Find yourself a good product to use to clean any leather you have, leather floggers or other instruments. Lysol wipes, bleach wipes, alcohol wipes, very important for wiping down surfaces as well. Then you want to carry a mini first aid kit with you at all times. Gloves are a good thing to have. I suggest nitrile rather than latex. And I suggest having other options other than latex for condoms as well. And yes, those condoms go over your toys in between every client. Also very important to have is a pair of scissors. This is especially important if you are a rigger or someone who practices rope play. Then you'll have your toys of choice. People usually go with a flogger, maybe two. I would suggest some sort of paddle. I wouldn't go too crazy right off the bat and get the biggest, hardest paddle out there. Something
Small, made of leather or pleather is fine. If you are one who would like to indulge in some of the butt stuff, I would suggest a small butt plug or a series of 3 butt plugs that are ascending in size. Also, along with any kind of anal play, I would suggest carrying puppy pads with you to put down on surfaces just in case. If you are someone who likes to dog walk, I would suggest maybe a cheap collar off of Amazon, and a leash that you can either get off of Amazon or Walmart or your local pet store. Not gonna lie. So here's a quick rundown of a few common kinks and fetishes. Some you may have heard of, some you may have not. Remember that even after you master a few things, there's always something to learn. So never be afraid to learn something new. Impact play tends to be the thing that people think of when they think of BDSM, the whipping and the flogging. People usually prefer a certain type of impact play over the other. You can have thuddy, you can have stingy. And as for the instruments that we use, there are the conventional instruments such as the floggers and the whips and paddles, but there can be unconventional tools as well, many of which you can find in your kitchen or at Home Depot. You can use things like spatulas, wooden spoons. I've seen people use PVC pipes. You can even use a rubber mallet on the butt area because there's lots of meat and it is a thuddy instrument. Foot fetish or worship is also another very popular fetish. And this fetish actually gives you a lot of variation to work with. You can play with boot fetishes, heel fetishes. Some people like socks. People like dirty socks, dirty feet, oily feet, feet in food, toes in food. There's so much to work with, so much. Then there is the B in BDSM, which is bondage. Many people are familiar with shibari now, the Japanese art of rope bondage. This art takes major skill and practice. If you want to learn this skill, it is best to find a mentor, take classes. Even if you're practicing on your own or from a class on YouTube or something like that, it's still good to always participate in local classes, maybe take online classes, things like that, to continue to hone your skill. This is a skill that takes consistent practice and constant repetition. Then there are other forms of bondage to explore, such as handcuffs. You can use duct tape. You can even use plastic wrap. I've even gotten creative with scarves a few times. Pet play can be more than just kittens and puppies. There are so many other animals other types of animal play that people like to indulge in. And this is not to be confused with a furry. Now, sissification and feminization has become kind of a controversial topic because it is rooted in humiliation. Usually, the goal is to humiliate that person by making them feminine, also known as turning them into a sissy. As you can imagine, that can be very offensive to the queer community and to women in general. So many DOMs nowadays choose to use the word feminization instead, because that still suggests the cross-dressing or forced cross-dressing aspect of it, without the sense that you are making fun of someone for being feminine. It is still a cross-dressing fetish at the core of it. A great way to make your coin here is to combine feminization with another fetish or another type of scene, such as you can have a service scene where this submissive may come to your home or to your workspace, the dungeon, wherever, and you might dress them up in a maid costume and have them clean. Or if you're really about that life, combine it with pegging, and you can feminize that person and then make them your bitch. Which brings us to the illegals and taboos. Pegging and any kind of anal play, anything that involves penetration or bodily fluid exchange, is illegal. Make sure that you understand the laws in your area when it comes to sex work. Some of these taboos may be things that you want to put on your limits list. Water sports, are also known as golden showers, are piss play. Some people will practice brown showers, which is scat play or play with feces. And to each their own, if it's up to you to decide what you're willing and not willing to do. And the rest of these speak for themselves, or I dare you to go look them up. Aftercare. Aftercare is so extremely important. As I mentioned earlier, aftercare can be as simple as a hug, a bottle of water, or some sort of affirmation. You did well, you're such a good girl, you're such a good boy, etc. Sometimes people will prefer to be left alone as their aftercare, and that's okay. You should always ask anyway. For an especially intense scene, sometimes it's also a good idea to check in with that submissive a few days later, maybe even a week later, just to make sure that they're still doing okay. Some online play also requires aftercare of some kind, and that can look like just a message afterwards. If you're doing it on Night Flirt or some other sort of phone service, I would suggest maybe a text message or an email to follow up or something like that. An example of when it may be appropriate is if you have a very mentally intense form of play, maybe something very humiliating or very intense emotionally. So to explain kind of why we practice aftercare, when a submissive is in play, they will reach what we call subspace. Playing is sort of like experiencing an upper type of drug. Reaching subspace produces a bunch of different chemicals in the body, like dopamine, serotonin, and adrenaline. After play is over, especially in a really intense scene, all of those chemicals can drop very rapidly. The feeling that comes from these chemicals dropping is what we would describe as sub-drop. It feels like a sort of rapid depression. Now, a dom or a top can also experience what we call top drop, which is basically the same process. Many times with top drop, that can also involve deep feelings of guilt.
This is why it is so important for you also as a top or as a dom to have your own aftercare routine. That aftercare routine can involve a shower, maybe some sort of clothing that is comforting to you or comfortable, or even a check-in with someone who you've specially assigned for such a task. Marketing yourself as a ThemDom. So, in-person domination should never be your only resource or source of income. Making content is always going to be the way to go, and making yourself accessible is key in that process. Once you've figured out your branding down to even the color schemes, you can work on things like logos and watermarks. Canva is your best friend. You can have a free account, or you can pay, I believe it's about $13 a month for a pro account, which will give you everything that you need. You can edit video, or you can edit pictures in this. You can make flyers. There's even a brand hub on Canva where you can create all of your logos, like my Demonatrix logo. You can also use things like PixArt to access a bunch of different fonts and things like that you can use to make a consistent watermark. All you have to do for a watermark is create the wording and then turn the opacity down so that you can see through the logo, just like I've done on this picture here. For video editing, I suggest Vilo. You can use this to edit videos right on your phone. I've heard that CapCut is also a good choice, but I have no personal experience with that. I do have experience with Adobe Premiere. That requires at least the purchase of Adobe Premiere, which I believe that they only charge for cloud storage per year once you have Adobe Premiere. But for a cheaper option and something that you can do right from your phone, I think that Vilo is my favorite. That's VLLO. Now, for adult content, there are many different options you can go with. I suggest always varying your platforms. I like ManyVids because it is very queer friendly. It has its own ecosystem, sort of like Facebook. There's ManyVids Social, where you can post what you're doing in the moment. You get a photo gallery where you can preview sort of what you're offering or just your art. They have live camming, which you can also record and post for sale on your ManyVids profile. And they even have a fan club where you can set up membership plans. So many people are familiar with OnlyFans and the controversy that went on last year. The credit card companies threatened them, and they in turn threatened to kick all of the adult content off of their site. In response to this, fansly.com, which actually existed for quite a while before this happened, jumped on the opportunity to advertise for everyone that was leaving OnlyFans. Fansly and OnlyFans, the platforms are very similar, but not exactly the same. I personally believe that the Fansly platform is a little bit more complicated, a little less straightforward, but it is very similar to OnlyFans. A major difference between Fansly and OnlyFans is that Fansly is strictly adult content. OnlyFans also has a number of celebrities and other types of creators who have profiles on their site. I do believe that the minimum withdrawal amount for Fansly is also higher than it is for OnlyFans. Another platform to consider is Pornhub's Model Hub. Now, this platform isn't going to make you a ton of money very quickly unless you have the magic sauce to beat out every other model there. However, it is good for driving traffic to your other platforms. You upload free content onto this platform and you get paid per view. You can also earn revenue from ads that are run on Pornhub. Because Pornhub is so majorly high traffic, it is really good for reeling in customers that you might direct to your ManyVids or your Fansly or OnlyFans. You have the option to turn on customs on Pornhub, but I suggest just using Model Hub to drive that traffic, like I said before. A great way to do this is to make shorter videos of maybe longer clips that you have, or just make shorter videos specifically for Model Hub, and add your Fansly or OnlyFans link to the corner of the video, or you can do this with your logo that you've made in Canva, and that will get people's attention so that if they want to continue to follow you, they will just hop on over to your other platforms. You can also add your platforms to, you can add certain platforms to your Model Hub profile and your personal website. Now, if you prefer to stay off camera, there are a few options that you have going for you. You can do phone sex operation. The most popular platform for PSO is Night Flirt. Unfortunately, Night Flirt is a little behind the times. They don't have very diverse categories for anyone trans or under the trans umbrella, and the interface is kind of old-fashioned. They also don't allow a litany of different words to be used on the website that includes your dom name. So if you have a daddy or mommy in your name, it will not be allowed. Sext Panther is a newer platform, but there are a few restrictions to that as well. It requires at least, I believe, 900 or more followers on Twitter. They also no longer have a mobile app that might make it a little bit easier on you. I suggest that you use your Google number or a fake number of some sort, a burner number, for your PSO line. On Night Flirt, your real phone number will be kept secret, or kept from the customers, so you don't have to really worry about that. They will use their own phone number as a cover. I do have to admit that Sext Panther seems to have slowed down a lot since their beginning success. So I would suggest having a Night Flirt and a Sext Panther account if you can manage to do so. Sext Panther is much more queer friendly and has a much more updated or modern interface as well. You can also do things like sell voice clips
Um, Within these voice clips, you can do things like hypnosis. You can read erotic stories. You can also do joy sessions or jerk off instructions. Many submissives enjoy being told to eat their cum after they do come from a jerk off instruction session. So, lastly, there's the promotion part of it. Unfortunately, Trump era laws such as Sesta Fasta have put major restrictions on what we can and cannot do on the internet. Whereas sex workers were once safe behind the screen, a lot of sex workers are now resorting to more dangerous methods of advertisement and finding work because anti-trafficking laws are being conflated with sex work in general and consenting sex work, which makes it impossible for us to sometimes advertise safely. The only thing you can really do about this, other than making sure that you are joining in the fight for sex worker rights, is to know your platform community guidelines and your laws in your area really well. I say that Facebook is a no-no. Either if you're going to have a Facebook at all, try not to let that Facebook go beyond family and close friends. You can do this by setting your settings to private so that people that are not friends cannot read your timeline. Change your last name on Facebook to some sort of nickname or alias. Even your first name as well, if you feel like going with a full first and last name nickname. And try not to use the same pictures that you use in your work for your Facebook page. I can admit that I am guilty of doing exactly that, but I also am not as concerned about people finding out my legitimate name. Now, for some reason, even though they're owned by the same person, Instagram seems to be the place where you're less likely to get zucked. I still would not suggest anything too out there. Try to cover nipples, try to cover any hint of lips, or you know what lips I mean, or genitals of any kind in your photos. Try not to use too many flag words like, cash meat or cash slave or like things like that. There are some tags and words that the Instagram bots will keep finding, and then your profile can be in trouble. On TikTok, I would not suggest anything too wild, but I do suggest getting creative. Play with different sounds to make cheeky references to what you do without being too direct. And another trick that I like to teach people is that if you go on TikTok and you make a video, you can use the TikTok music by adding it onto your video, and then in your settings before you post, change who can see this video to only me. That will load the video onto your phone and only you can see it. So you can use that for Instagram or Twitter, and not necessarily get your profile flagged for using it on TikTok itself. Twitter is a platform that is actually very free. You can post almost anything there. You can definitely post genitals. It does not allow any nudity or suggestive stuff in your profile picture anymore. So that has to be a picture that is fully clothed, or just not showing any nipples or genitals in the picture alone. Twitter is a great platform for promoting any of your work. I mentioned ManyVids Social before. Again, ManyVids has its own sort of ecosystem. It's like Facebook for porn. You can even get their ManyVids instructional videos on YouTube if you just type in ManyVids University. And the ManyVids employees will teach you how to use the ManyVids platform. Another great platform is FetLife. On FetLife, you tend to get a lot of time wasters or local people that want to play for free. FetLife is a great platform for finding local events or classes, workshops, things that you may be interested in. This would be where where you can find and build your community by finding munches that you can go to. And a munch is just a gathering of kinky people. It's usually at a restaurant somewhere, where people can gather around over a meal and some drinks. I would always say that it is important to at least attempt to get to know your local kink community. However, I understand that not everyone is in the best situation socially in their area. That's why I'm hoping that with the Kinky Cafe's continued existence, that everyone that is like us, the LGBTQ plus kinksters, have a place to go, a family to be a part of. So as I said before, FetLife is great for finding local events, workshops, etc., and for getting to know your local kink community. Now, because of Sesta Fosta, we often run the risk of losing our platforms. In order to continue to be accessible to new submissives and clients, a great backup is to have your own personal website. On Wix.com, you can build your own simple free website, and they have many templates that you can work with. You can set up a mailing list here too, I believe. Then there are other options like a link in bio website. One option is Milkshake. I believe that they're still sex worker friendly and safe. A newer app is slink.app. That's a new link in bio website. This has so many different options. It's actually a pretty good app. You can even link your NSFW websites as well as your rated G or rated PG websites. You even have the option to hide certain websites from other websites. Like you can hide your Pornhub or your OnlyFans from search engines or from the bots on Instagram. So you can still use your link in your bio, but Instagram's bots won't detect that you have an adult website on it.
You also need to understand the guidelines of different web hosting sites. One really good web hosting site that allows adult content is Vice Temple. With a Vice Temple account, you can also create an e-commerce website where you can directly sell your adult content. Cuties Tools is another option. This is a little bit more expensive than, say, Vice Temple. Vice Temple, you can get a license for, I believe, the whole year for $12 one time, and then I think it's $6 per month to keep it running. And Cuties Tools is they give you many templates to work with, but it's $25 a month, I think minimum, for a website through them. And then there's Red Umbrella Hosting, which is even more expensive, but it is also sex worker run and owned. Another branch of domination that a lot of people like to get into is FindDom, or financial domination. Financial domination is kind of a newer concept, at least in the way that it is presented now. Financial domination was once something that involved having control over the submissive's wallet or spending habits or what have you. For instance, you would give a submissive a budget that he may use every month, and a percentage of his income every month goes straight to you as his dominant. Or you tell him that he can only spend so much on his wife and he owes you this much per month, or something like that. That would be a debt contract, for instance. If you're on FetLife, you might hear some submissives talk about how they're not into FindDom, and they believe that that includes your hourly rate. Your hourly rate is not just FindDom. That is just getting paid what you are owed as a professional dominant. You determine what your hourly rate is. What you say goes. You can even change it depending on who is requesting it from you, if someone's offended you, etc. It's totally up to you. You determine your own worth. Another part of FindDom that you may be interested in is creating a wish list. You can also do this if you're not fully into financial domination. Sometimes submissives may choose to gift you with something off of your wish list. For your wish list, there is Wish Tender or Amazon. Wish Tender is a newer app. It is made for sex workers to kind of give us a safer way to receive gifts. You can set up different tips that people can send you. You can also add things from any website on the internet. They say any website, but to be honest, sometimes it doesn't work so well. It's a plugin that you add to your browser, and you can add things to your wish list from there. So you can add things from multiple different websites, whereas on Amazon, you just make the Amazon wish list and call it a day. Make sure to specify a minimum tribute. in the bio of your profiles. Some profiles you don't want to put your minimum tribute in, like Instagram or Facebook. Again, Facebook should be a no-no. Instagram is a little bit more lax, but they will flag you for asking for money directly on your profile. Your minimum tribute is meant to deter time wasters. So you list your minimum tribute and you tell people and you remind people, I will not answer a DM unless you've sent that minimum tribute first. Your minimum tribute can be anywhere from $15, $20 to $150. It really depends on what you think is worth it and what you think people will pay as the initial without having to book anything with you. There are many options and resources for learning more about ThemDom and learning more about BDSM in general. I suggest the Sex Worker Survival Guide that's run by Domina Cat. The website is listed here. This is sex workers that provide all kinds of information, all kinds of education and resources through this one website. I personally have found a lot of helpful workshops for either free or really cheap through the Sex Worker Survival Guide. Then when it comes to ThemDom, Mistress Marley is at the top of the game right now, especially when it comes to black ThemDoms. She has her Sex Academy, which you can find on Patreon. Each tier is $5, and I believe that she has one-on-one mentoring open again, which last time I think was $25 per month. I'm not sure what it is now. Now again, I want to stress that certain types of domination or certain types of ThemDom are not for everyone. Some parts of ThemDom include sugaring. Some people aren't comfortable with that type of thing. Especially since, when you think of sugaring, unfortunately, it does usually involve an older man. And I know from personal experience, not everyone is comfortable with that. ThemDom also tends to be centered on a very high femme type of aesthetic, but it doesn't always have to be. As long as you know about the psychology around this type of kink, you can learn to utilize what traits you have. Like I said, lean into your strengths. If you are very masculine, lean more into your masculine traits to learn to dominate submissives. One last topic that I would like to cover, which I feel like not many people talk about, is creating or joining a Dom house. What this is basically creating a group of Doms, like a sorority or a fraternity type of setting. This is a great way to connect with community. This is a great way to find mentorship and guidance, also to grow camaraderie. Your house can be a representation of you. For instance, if you would like to participate in leather competitions and things like that, or to build a dungeon in which you will all operate as a group. Create a service menu.
This will make it a lot easier for you to list off what you do than having to write it all out and remember it for every email that you respond to. I personally do not list my hourly rate on my service menu. I just list what I do, my minimum tribute, and my unblock fee, which is the fee in case someone pisses me off and I have to block them. If they would like another chance, they have to pay me that fee in order for me to unblock them. Once again, you set your hourly rate. You determine how much you're worth per hour. Now, you can just list the link for your sub application maybe in your link in bio, but I also suggest email booking. What I do is I specify that I will only book through email. They send me an email introducing themselves and telling me kind of what they're looking for and what they're like. And then from there, I send them the link to my sub application personally. What this does is allow them another chance to throw out any red flags that you might pick up on. Remember to always collect your money before you go into a session. Before you ever start giving your services, collect your money before your session. When you come into the room, you should be expecting the other half of your deposit. And then after you have collected that cash in hand, then you start the session. Now, a few other places where you can write your listing would be tryst.link. Be careful with this one. Unfortunately, there are a lot of scammers that use tryst.link to send you all kinds of spam emails and things like that. Tryst.link will never send you anything that does not say tryst.link. If it comes from any other email or anything like that, it's not from Tryst. And you're probably part of a phishing scam or something like that. Be very careful on that website. On Tryst, you can list that you're transgender or non-binary. It is very queer-friendly, a very queer-friendly listing. Another listing is dickievirgin.com. This is more traditional FemDom, and it is kind of behind the times, to be honest. However, you can list an advertisement on Dickie Virgin, and if you're okay with listing yourself as a transvestite or something outdated like that, then you can go with Dickie Virgin. It seems to get a lot of traffic still to this day, so that is an option. Eros.com is sort of similar to Tryst.link. I have heard. I don't have any personal experience with it. I am only on Tryst.link. Tryst.link is also hosted out of the country, and it is an escort listing as well. So you may get a lot of traffic that expects you to be available at the same time. Just make sure to specify on your profile that you do not take same-day clients, anything like that, and be certain that you are listed under BDSM. Again, other ways to get your name out there would be hopping on FetLife for events, local workshops, etc., to get to know your local kink community. Also, finding events that are geared toward the LGBTQ in the kink community. And depending on where you are, they might be smaller or larger groups. You never know. But create your support network by finding out who around you is like-minded and has a similar lifestyle. And again, it is so important to diversify your income. Sell content, sell items. You can do phone sex operation. You can even produce. I've also seen people involve tantra, sensual massage. I've seen all sorts of things, life coaching. There's so much to explore and so many different ways to layer things to make your bag and make your living. Offer not just in-person sessions, but also online sessions. You can do this through Skype or through Sex Panther, through Night Flirt. And I've seen some people do it with FaceTime as well, or Snapchat. Last, there is full service versus not full service. So an example of a full service worker would be a Dom who is also an escort. And it is totally up to you what you are comfortable with. Remember, you are not a bad person for offering full service, just as you are no better than anyone else for not. Because at the end of the day, we're all whores here. Now, this lifestyle and especially this line of work can sometimes be overwhelming, stressful, and discouraging. I suggest keeping up a schedule of regular mental health and mental hygiene and spiritual hygiene practices. For one, if you have a vanilla job, I suggest keeping that vanilla job at least part-time until you feel completely comfortable transitioning into full-time sex work. Next, schedule. It is extremely important to have at least some sort of loose weekly routine. For those of us with ADHD, that is especially important. Go and get yourself a paper planner. I prefer a hard copy planner. Some people prefer online methods only. I also enjoy personally keeping a paper planner and also scheduling things in my Google Calendar. And Google Keep is another valuable tool to use. On Google Keep, you can send lists to other people and they can edit those lists with you. They can add, subtract other things. You can make a list of anything, basically. You can make lists all your life. And it's stored on Google so that you can access it from anywhere you have access to the internet. I also suggest carrying a notebook or having a good notepad app on your phone. Google Keep can also be used as a note-taking app. Schedule everything. Like I said, even if it's just a loose schedule, maybe make one day your content shooting day, another day your edit day, and make sure to schedule self-care time. You need that time to unplug, to unwind, and to just give yourself a break. It doesn't matter how urgent you think things are. We always need to prioritize rest. If you have ADHD and have a hard time, or just have a hard time with time management, I suggest the watch trick. It's not as much of a trick as much as it is just another tool in your toolbox. If you don't wear a watch, go out and find yourself a watch, something that you don't mind wearing during the day. When you have this watch on, that is the time when you are in working hours. When the watch is not on, you should be resting and not thinking about work. This watch also helps with what is called time blindness. Sometimes, especially if you have ADHD, We think that we know how long it takes to do something, but it turns out that that's not so much. We're not so clear on that. With your watch, you can time yourself on certain tasks that you do over and over again. Write the time down and either try to continue to beat that time a little bit more each time you do it, or you'll just have an idea of how much of a window to give yourself in your schedule. So if laundry takes you an hour to do, you will say laundry 1 hour on your calendar. And then when you're in your working hours, you make sure that your time on laundry goes no further than an hour if you can help it. Don't be afraid to take breaks, whether it's a break of one day or a week or a month. Don't be afraid. Don't be ashamed. Who is for you will be there for you when you return. Find your support system. That involves going to these local kink events and finding other queer kinky people, queer sex workers, other sex workers in general. They can be found online. They can be found through the Kinky Cafe. This is why it's important to build community. Try to pick up meditation. And don't worry if you are not great at it right off the bat. The whole point is to keep trying until you can reach meditative state without even thinking about it. This takes practice and repetition. Starting with intentional breath work is usually the easiest way to go with this, especially since all meditation is highly dependent on breath work. Even just a 5-minute morning meditation in your daily routine can help tremendously. Studies show that regular meditation can even help with ADHD by strengthening your neural pathways. Listen to affirmations, whether they're your own or something that you find online. Make sure that they focus on your whole being as well. Don't just focus on money-making mantras and things like that. If you as a whole are not aligned, you will not be able to manifest anything else, especially not wealth or love or anything like that. You must make sure that you are whole. Remember that you must master you before you can truly master anyone else. Take time out from social media and the news. The outside world can be extremely overwhelming, especially in the LGBTQ, especially if you're not just queer, but black or brown. We need to take these times to reset sometimes. Even if it's just for one weekend, unplug from your phone, go out into nature, touch some grass, and just really try to remember to prioritize your rest and your mental and spiritual health above anything else. You will never be satisfied with any amount of money if your mental and spiritual health are not taken care of. So go get out into nature. Make sure that you touch the earth. We are electromagnetic creatures, and we need the earth to help us stay grounded. Also, make sure to cleanse yourself often. We tend to interact with a lot of people in this lifestyle, and a lot of people bring a lot of different energies. Make sure that you are smudging yourself often or using your Florida water to spritz yourself. Some may like to use some sort of herbal cleansing spray to cleanse their aura. Other methods include taking a shower and speaking affirmations, speaking that cleansing over yourself. I also suggest keeping bowls of salt near your entrances or in your room where you can store your jewelry and cleanse your jewelry whenever you come back in from the house, especially if you wear things like crystals, because they will carry that energy with you. It may seem trivial at first, but we create a lot of cords. We carry a lot of energy with us, especially in sex work when there is exchange of all of these intense and heavy energies and bodily fluids and things like that. This concludes Intro to ThemDom. At the end of this presentation, I have listed resources for your use and access. Please pause to read. And if you will join me in a quick 5-minute meditation, you can use this practice for grounding at any time. We'll begin by getting into a comfortable position, whether that's sitting up straight or laying on your back with your palms toward the sky. Now I want you to close your eyes and we'll begin with some breath work. I want you to inhale for 3, hold, and exhale for 5. Again, inhale through the nose, hold, and exhale, sighing through the mouth. Again, now as you continue to work on your breath, I want you to imagine that there are roots growing from the bottom of your body where your body connects to the earth or to the ground or to wherever you lay. Imagine these mighty roots shooting down through the floor, through all the construction, through all of the man-made obstacles, and reaching down into the earth. Now imagine those roots planting themselves solidly into Mother Earth. And imagine a white light traveling up those roots and into your body. As this white light creeps up your body from the bottom of your feet, up your legs, to your belly button. Feel it tingling and electric as it buzzes through your body and travels upward, 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 pushing all of the gunk, all of the negative, anything bad and dark out of your body. All negative cords and attachments are being sent back to sender. And that white light now shoots through the top of your head, through your crown. Allow that light to remove anything that burdens you, to return you to new, to be able to start a new day. And now your roots are returning to your body. You are cleansed and you are new. Remember that Mother Earth is always there to take that burden from you. She's always there to alchemize the negative into light. And with another deep breath in, hold, and out. We return to reality and we can open our eyes. Thank you for joining.